Hello, this is Parker Brisebois, Parker Thomas Brisebois, first of his name, and you are watching, once again, the Iridescent. What's up, people? What's up, my fans and followers and friends and tiny little 44-person internet family? I do have some shit for you today. We're going back to some headline-type behavior. But, as per usual, we're going to start with art. The color scheme today, if you can call it that, is grayscale. Because grayscale is the color of smoke. And if you live in the world, aka the West Coast, the Western United States, you're probably aware that the world is on fire. And I don't mean that metaphorically for once. It is literally on fire. All up and down the coast, Oregon, Washington, Northern California, Southern California, got into Idaho. There's fires in my hometown. There's fires in my new hometown. There's fires everywhere. And the air smells like bad. But I think if we just sit still and do nothing, climate change will probably fix itself. So just keep doing what you're doing. Watch more YouTube. Also, in the spirit of fires, I wanted to show you someone we're not actually literally endorsed by. But this is one of my favorite signs of all time, and I'm not going to point out what's wrong with it. You're going to have to figure that out. Just keep looking at it. I got this sign while working on a local campaign for a state senate race back in 2016, which was a bad year to be in politics. I'm still reeling from it. Everybody's still reeling from it. But yeah, we were endorsed by the local firefighters, and that's a great group of people to be endorsed by. They've got big buildings that they let you do stuff in. They've got cool trucks and cool hats and big hoses if you're into that sort of thing. And just all in all are a group of first responders that need be celebrated way more. Firefighters are dope. You can't politicize firefighters. Why can't we politicize firefighters? What do you think? I have an idea. It's because what firefighters do is actually unequivocally good and helpful, which is debatable about other first responders such as cops. Ambulance drivers? No. What's the common trend there? Think long and hard. Okay, time's up. Anyways, just a random thought I was having this morning as I was listening to a podcast called Chapo Trap House, which is one of my kind of favorite like junk food lefty politics podcasts. They spend a lot of time just shitting on war and America's fascination with war and how we see that in elements of our pop culture, our entertainment. So war movies and stuff. We have a lot of World War II movies. Some World War I movies. Some Vietnam War movies. We just have a lot of war movies. Hollywood pumps out a lot of war movies. And I get it in one sense that it's epic struggle and people like bang, 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 bang. You know, fantasies and such. People want to see that represented. But there's just other stuff. There are other existential threats to our species that I feel like you can get that epic imagery, that legendary sense of struggle out of too, right? Like a giant fucking apocalyptic fire spanning the entire West Coast before fire season officially gets here. Why don't we have more firefighter movies? You know? What's stopping us from having firefighter movies? Is because fires can't have evil laughs or nefarious schemes or some kind of tragically relatable backstory that makes them a more well-rounded villain. They just burn stuff? Maybe. But again, that's part of the fantasy of how we fixate on evil shit too much, and maybe that's just it. America loves a bad guy, and a fire's not a cool enough bad guy. Have you figured out what's wrong with the sign yet? I love it. We left this shit up. So we had her sign, the candidate I was working for, and we'd have these underneath it, and we'd nail them into the ground all over the place. You've seen campaign signs before. They're semi-useless, but always necessary at the same time. Candidates love them. The party loves them. But we had this underneath all of them, and right before I got hired on, these got made, and we got them in. But when they found the mistake, the candidate made the call, fuck it, just leave them up. And I love that sentiment personally, because people don't read shit anyway. There's the old studies out that people generally just need the first letter and the last letter, and they can have all the letters in the middle, or at least most of them, but they don't have to be in the right order, and your brain will just make that word for you. Because our brain's really good at making shortcuts, which, if you can tell, is a central theme that I've had running through this show. Or maybe I'm bullshitting you. I don't know. Anyways, love this sign. It's great. It's abstract. You know what it means, even though that's not what it says. All right, so on to headlines. Still talking about politics, sort of. This is kind of international spy stuff, really. They should be getting some James Bond script about this, where new Bond, what's his fucking name? Blonde guy. Dude, what the fuck is his name? Oh, Daniel Craig. They should make a James Bond movie of Daniel Craig. They should make a James Bond movie where Daniel Craig is actually just a Facebook employee, because it seems like that's where most of the international intrigue is coming from these days, especially when it has to do with actual legitimate high-stakes politics, not just some bullshit poker game with a hyper-relatable villain who cries blood, because that's just badass and interesting. No, we should have Daniel Craig sitting behind a desk somewhere in Silicon Valley, pulling up stories like this, which is that Russian internet trolls, probably working for one of their super secret spy firms with names that translate into things like Sleepy Bear and Cozy Bear. Sleepy Bear and Cozy Bear probably hired actual American journalists to push their news website on Facebook. But this time, unlike last time, they're playing around with targeting people on the far left. So this Facebook page is called Peace Data, which to me is just a red flag, man. Peace Data? That's like an over-the-top name for anything. Like, simultaneously means nothing, but hits you with the feels, and also just feels like somebody whose first language, or maybe no language, is English, and they just typed into Russian Google Translate. Do they use Google in Russia? Yeah, whatever words, and it came out Peace Data, and they're like, yes, lefties. Yeah, the American left is very soft. They like not to fight, and they like objective information. So we call it Peace Data, right? So they put up this bullshit Facebook website, and they hired American journalists to run it because American journalists sound coherent in English, and that was important, apparently, according to this NBC story. Actually, I'm speculating a little bit. That's more important if you're trying to imitate a left-wing social media site, because liberals actually tend to read the shit more. Liberals tend to have higher levels of education, so typos tend to render things illegitimate. Maybe? I'm just speculating. I'm being combative. The scheme of hiring American journalists to do this work, it's tragic that that's effective, but that just speaks to the plight of somebody trying to make a job as a journalist in the United States. It's probably really hard as a freelancer, and I mean, it speaks to a level of difficulty in the American economic system anyway. There's no safety net for somebody who does freelance work, so they're forced to take jobs in sketchy for sketchy actors, you know? They're not going to vet their boss that much, their potential boss that much, if they're the only one offering them a paycheck for the only line of work they're qualified to do or want to do. Yeah, I'm reminded of a time before I had my last job that I left or got laid off from. And my mom actually sent me a link to some Craigslist ad, and it was for writing, because for a long time I thought I was going to be a writer, before I realized I'm actually an internet personality. And it was just writing little blurbs, like little advertisements, little clickbait things, 200-word articles, you know, just nothing burgers. And it was all through Slack, and they were going to wire you the money, and it was just totally janky. It wasn't real writing, and the pay scale was not good. Like, you needed to write 10 articles to make like £10. It was based out of the UK. And yet, when I was on the Slack channel, there were a shitload of people doing it. It was like a sweatshop of journalism. Journalism. It's not journalism. Sweatshop of writing. People trying to make it as writers, trying to pay their rent that way. And yeah, I imagine that group of sweatshop writers were the same types of folks that Cozy Bear and Sleepy Bear managed to hire out to fuel this site Peace Data. Which, again, is just a totally ridiculous name. So be on the lookout for that shit. Facebook did a good job taking it down, but just look for stuff that looks corny, I guess you could say. And tell the older folks in your life who have access to the internet and maybe more licensed to do whatever they want on the internet than they should, to vet for corny shit. Because this comes back to pandemic stuff, to campaign scam stuff. It's easy for people who didn't grow up on the internet to get roped in by high production value. So be wary of stuff that looks off. Next headline. So I've been talking a lot about the fires, and one of the most grimly hilarious fires is the one just north of San Bernardino, caused by a gender reveal party going wrong. There were pyrotechnics that got out of control and set a fucking county on fire, all because some self-absorbed assholes wanted an explosion to tell their friends and bullshit family what fucking sex their child is going to be at birth. And I put it that way because that kid's going to be trans. I'm calling it now. How self-absorbed do you have to be to light off fireworks in California at the beginning of fire season for something as arbitrary as a fucking gender reveal? Like, if you're into that, you do a fucking water balloon or something. Ugh! And you know what's crazy is that's not the first time that this has happened. A couple years ago, a gender reveal pyrotechnic caused a fire in California around the same time of year. People are just self-absorbed as all shit. Pay attention to the apocalyptic shitfest that is a world around you. You don't have to like go balls deep in it. You don't have to quit your job and make a YouTube channel talking about it. But be conscientious enough that you can be aware that the county around you, the world around you, if you live in a certain part of the world, is a literal tinderbox. Just be aware enough of that. How hard can that be? And don't just be aware of it. Allow it to pragmatically inform your actions, you know? And then hopefully you can go from there to shaping your life around more mindful, proactive activities and habits, like just driving your fucking car less, or buying local, or voting, or talking to your neighbors more. This is legitimate cause for anger and frustration when it kicks off a fire season that hasn't even started yet for something as stupid as a fucking gender reveal. A sex reveal, also, to get the parlance up to date. Because that kid could be misgendered, and how wonderfully poetic would it be? Well, not wonderfully poetic, more like tragically ironic if that kid is gender non-binary. Yeah. What if they named it Sparky? Or like, what if it was a redhead? I hope it's a redhead named Sparky who is trans. Let's talk about something called the Red Mirage. So Axios did an interview on HBO, which pisses me off that a company like Axios, which is supposed to be like cream of the crop news stuff, breaking interviews and all that, is on HBO, which is a distinctly inaccessible form of media dispersal. It's too expensive. But fortunately, you can find this stuff on the internet. Anyways, Axios did a interview with a data analytics firm called Hawkfish, which is run by the Bloomberg company, which runs data analysis, polling, things like that, for the Democrats, like the Democratic Party as a whole on a national scale. And they're running this nightmare scenario called the Red Mirage right now. And I want you to be aware of this, and I want you to be able to talk about it with people. So a mirage is something that looks like it's real and it's not there, right? And red, if you live, if you're an ostrich with your head in the fucking sand, is typically the color associated with the Conservative Party in this country, the Republicans. Okay, we up to speed? So a red mirage is something Republican, something that looks real but isn't actually there. Now, the Red Mirage is a election day scenario, in which Trump appears to win in a landslide on election night. And it is a mirage because it might not be the case. Hopefully it's not the case. It probably won't be the case if you can believe any of the polls right now. But the reason it'll look that way is because Hawkfish is predicting that more of the conservative vote, a higher proportion of the conservative vote, will come in early than the Democratic vote. And that's not necessarily because of the USPS scandal, which to my knowledge has been cleaned up a little bit, but probably not all the way. But it does have to do with mail-in voting. So, in case you didn't know this, when you vote, if you come from a place where you mail in your ballot, because of, say you mail it in on election day and it's postmarked there, your vote's still going to count. Or I don't know if it's on election day, but the very last day that mail-in ballots count as legit. If it gets there on the 3rd of November, it might not necessarily get counted that day. It takes a long time to fucking count ballots. But if you go and vote in person, it gets counted sooner and or right away. Now, historically, since mail-in voting has been a thing, a higher percentage of Democratic voters vote by mail. Okay? Republican voters are by and large more likely to go in and vote in person. That's just statistics that have shown to be true throughout the years. Now, this year, due to COVID, they're predicting a higher than ever number of mail-in ballots, which makes sense. People don't want to congregate in large areas. That's smart, right? It makes sense. But a higher number of mail-in ballots, which are historically largely Democratic anyway, means that more Democrats than ever are going to vote by mail. And more of the Democratic vote, a larger percentage of it, is going to come in by mail. And that means it's potentially going to come in later. It's going to be counted later. So we don't know necessarily who wins on election night. But this year, because there's going to be so many mail-in ballots, there's a higher likelihood of a much higher swing. So Trump could appear to win in a landslide because mostly conservatives showed up to the polls. But then a few days later, once more and more of the mail-in ballots are counted, you're going to see a swing towards Biden, potentially winning in a landslide, hopefully. You can imagine how terrifying a scenario this could be, considering how much Trump is already trafficking in the rhetoric of frauds in the election, And many of his diehard supporters aren't going to give a shit about what I just explained to you, if they could even understand it. They're just going to see that Fox is saying, and conservative media is saying, Trump wins in landslide. Or early polls show Trump wins in landslide. And they're going to glom onto that because that's going to affirm their narrative, and that's what they're going to want to hear, right? And then as the thing actually goes about its technological process, and we see that that's not the case, they're going to cry foul. And you already know Trump's probably going to gin him up. And if you think, well, maybe there is something to this fraudulent thing, if that's never been the case before, if typically it looks like the winner on election night is the winner of the election, well, let me give you a historical example fairly recently of how that hasn't been the case. In 2000, when Al Gore was running against George W., after November 3rd, it took them 36 days to confirm the election results. So it didn't get confirmed until November 39th, 2000. That's a long fucking time. And in 2020 time, the crazy regular dog years times we live in, 36 days is going to feel like 3 years. That's going to be plenty of time for fucking Rittenhouse types to hit the streets and go fucking crazy. So spread awareness, if you can, of the process of the election, of how it takes time to count polls. That's not made up. That's not fraudulent. There's going to be more mail-in ballots. They're going to take longer to count. And that's going to cause some atypical shit to go down in the election this year. And it's not a scheme by fucking pedophile lizard people. It's just how the thing works. So, let people know. All right? Anyways, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Smash that like, smash that subscribe, tell your friends. We're still a tight-knit family, but I think we want to spread the word, man. I get more fired up to make more videos if I feel like I'm making progress, and I do feel like I'm making progress. And it's hella fun doing these. So I'll keep this coming for you if you can tell one friend who might be so kind as to hit a subscribe for me. And fun fact, if you have a Gmail account, then you have a YouTube account. It's not fucking hard. So sign up, subscribe. I'll hit you with more stuff. Thanks for watching. Parker Brisebois. You've been watching the Iridescent. Peace!